Good evening and welcome to Royal Report Daily, your most trusted source for breaking royal news and exclusive investigations. Tonight we bring you a story that has sent shockwaves through the very heart of Buckingham Palace. Because on the 25th of March, 2026, the quietest and most reliable member of the entire royal family finally picked up his sword. And the target of his fury is none other than Queen Camilla herself. For decades, Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, have been the steady, scandal-free backbone of the House of Windsor. While other royals made headlines for all the wrong reasons, Edward and Sophie quietly showed up, did the work, and never complained. They were the royals the institution could always count on, the ones who never caused problems, the ones who never demanded attention. But on the 25th of March 2026, all of that changed, because Queen Camilla reportedly pushed them too far. And the quiet Duke has responded with something nobody in the palace expected: a full and devastating legal counterattack. Don't forget to subscribe to Royal Report Daily and hit that notification bell so you never miss a single update. So what exactly has happened? The conflict centers on two things that are deeply personal to Edward and Sophie. First, Bagshot Park, their family home of over 20 years. A magnificent 120-room Tudor Gothic estate set within 51 acres in Surrey. This is not just a house. This is where Edward and Sophie raised their children, James, now Earl of Wessex, and Lady Louise. It is the only home their children have ever known. Second, and this is where things get truly personal, the Anthemion Tiara, a breathtakingly beautiful piece of jewelry, commissioned specifically by the late Queen Elizabeth II as a personal wedding gift to Sophie in 1999, crafted from antique jewelry elements once belonging to Queen Victoria herself. Not a state loan, not a borrowed piece from the royal collection. A private gift from a mother-in-law to the daughter-in-law she loved most. And Queen Camilla, according to sources, has reportedly been making moves against both. Stay tuned to Royal Report Daily. We bring you the stories that matter. Let's start with Bagshot Park. Queen Camilla allegedly suggested that the 50-year lease on the estate, granted to Edward and Sophie as a wedding gift in 1999, should be reviewed. Her argument, sources say, was that a 120-room mansion is excessive for a couple that maintains a relatively limited royal profile. The suggestion was floated that the family should consider moving to a smaller apartment within Windsor Castle, freeing Bagshot Park to be used as a commercial crown asset or given to a higher-ranking official. What Camilla apparently did not account for was the fact that Edward had been quietly and methodically building a legal fortress around Bagshot Park for over 2 decades. When his legal team arrived at the palace on the morning of March 25th and delivered their comprehensive dossier to the King's private secretary, the response inside the palace was described by insiders as nothing short of seismic. The legal case Edward's team presented rested on 3 absolutely solid pillars. The first, the original 1999 lease agreement itself. Unlike most royals who live in grace and favor homes maintained entirely by the taxpayer, Edward and Sophie operate Bagshot Park under a formal commercial lease from the Crown Estate. And crucially, Edward has invested over £5 million of his own private money into restoring and maintaining the property. Money earned through his own early business ventures and private investments. Not a single penny of sovereign grant funding. He took a near-derelict building and restored it to Grade 2 listed standards entirely at his own expense. This gives him what lawyers call equitable interest. Any attempt to terminate that lease early would trigger a multi-million-pound compensation claim that the palace simply cannot afford, particularly under King Charles's own slimmed-down budget. The second pillar, a previously undisclosed document signed by the late Queen Elizabeth II and witnessed by the late Prince Philip shortly before his passing. This letter of intent explicitly linked the granting of the Dukedom of Edinburgh to permanent residency at Bagshot Park. It states clearly that the estate was to serve as the seat of the Edinburgh family for the duration of Edward's life and that of his spouse. This single document transforms the entire dispute from a property argument into a matter of sovereign intent. To evict Edward from Bagshot Park would be to publicly and deliberately override the written wishes of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, two of the most beloved and respected figures in the entire history of the British monarchy. The third pillar, 20 years of meticulous conservation and management records showing that the Edinburghs have maintained Bagshot Park to a standard that exceeds the Crown Estate's own requirements. They have hosted charities, preserved the grounds, and saved the monarchy millions in maintenance costs. By acting as exceptional tenant caretakers, they have been an extraordinary asset, not a burden. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to Royal Report Daily for more exclusive investigations. The reaction inside the palace to this legal dossier was extraordinary. King Charles III was reportedly shocked and visibly shaken to discover that his younger brother had been quietly and methodically constructing this legal defense for over 2 decades. The king, who had spent years assuming that his authority as monarch would allow him to redistribute royal properties as he saw fit, was forced to confront a deeply uncomfortable reality. His youngest brother is his legal equal in the eyes of British property law, and he has the paperwork to prove it. Queen Camilla's reaction, by contrast, was described as one of cold fury. She reportedly views Edward's decision to bring in top-tier constitutional and property lawyers as an act of outright insubordination. But Edward's legal team sent a message back that was icily clear. They are not there to negotiate. They are there to enforce a legally binding contract. This is not a family conversation over tea at Windsor. This is high-stakes property litigation, and the Duke of Edinburgh is fully prepared to see it through to the end. Now let's turn to the Anthemion Tiara, because this is where the dispute becomes deeply, almost unbearably personal. Earlier this year, Queen Camilla's office reportedly initiated a comprehensive jewelry audit across the royal collection. The stated purpose was cataloging pieces for national heritage purposes, but sources say the real implication was far more targeted. Camilla's office allegedly claimed that because the Anthemion Tiara incorporated stones and goldwork from Queen Victoria's era, it technically constituted Crown property and should therefore be returned to the central vault when not in active use at state events. The practical meaning of this was devastating. Sophie would no longer own her own wedding crown. She would have to formally petition the Queen Consort for permission to wear it. To Prince Edward, this was not an administrative audit. This was theft, not just of a piece of jewelry, but of his mother's final act of love for his wife. And he responded with a legal argument that has left the palace's jewelry experts completely speechless. His lawyers produced a deed of gift signed by Queen Elizabeth II in 1999, which explicitly and unambiguously classifies the Anthemion Tiara as a private personal wedding present. Not a state loan, not an institutional piece, but a gift given woman to woman, mother-in-law to daughter-in-law, with full private ownership intended. Furthermore, and this is the detail that nobody inside the palace saw coming, Edward himself spent months in 1999 working with the royal jewelers to design a complimentary set of black and white pearl jewelry, a matching necklace and earrings to be worn alongside the tiara. While the crown paid for the materials, Edward holds the intellectual property and design rights to the complete set. His legal team argued that the tiara and the pearl set form an inseparable aesthetic and legal unit, protected by the Duke's own creative involvement and intellectual property. The message from Edward's legal camp was delivered with devastating clarity. If Camilla's crown claim on the tiara was not formally dropped by end of day, Edward's team would release private correspondence from the late Queen Elizabeth II explicitly expressing her personal desire for Sophie to retain full ownership of her jewelry. The release of such correspondence would paint Camilla in the most catastrophic possible light, as a queen consort attempting to strip a beloved royal of the most precious tokens her mother-in-law chose to give her. King Charles reportedly recognized immediately that the optics of this situation were absolutely disastrous. Sophie is one of the most genuinely loved figures in the entire royal family. The woman who rode quietly in the car with the Queen. The woman who worked without complaint for decades. The woman the late Queen trusted above almost anyone else. For Camilla to be publicly seen as reaching into Sophie's jewelry box and taking the crown off her head, that is a PR catastrophe that King Charles simply cannot afford. Don't miss a single update. Subscribe to Royal Report Daily right now. But what truly shifted the balance of power on March 25th was not just Edward's legal fortress. It was who stepped out of the shadows to stand beside him. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, the hardest-working, most disciplined, most respected member of the entire royal family, broke her famous neutrality and formed a powerful alliance with her younger brother. Her support transformed this dispute from a younger brother defending his home into something far larger and far more significant. It became a declaration by the biological children of Queen Elizabeth II that they will not allow their mother's legacy, her written wishes, her personal gifts, her private letters, to be overridden by a queen consort who, in their view, is dangerously overstepping her constitutional authority. Anne reportedly delivered a brutal and surgical assessment directly to King Charles. She told him plainly that if he allowed Camilla to invalidate the private gifts and the long-term housing security granted by their mother, then the word of a sovereign means nothing. If our mother's signature on a lease or a deed of gift is not worth the paper it's written on today, Anne reportedly said to Charles directly, then your signature will be worth even less tomorrow. That single statement, delivered with Anne's trademark cold precision, struck a deep and existential chord in the king. Charles is a man who genuinely reveres tradition and the sanctity of the written word. The idea of being seen as a monarch who overrides his own mother's documented final wishes, who allows his brother's family to be displaced from their home and his sister-in-law to be stripped of her wedding crown is a legacy Charles is desperately trying to avoid. Anne also raised the stakes regarding Edward's children, James and Lady Louise. Camilla's reported interest in standardizing their royal status, potentially accelerating their transition to fully private citizen lives, met the fiercest possible resistance from Anne. She produced records of Queen Elizabeth's grandfathered agreements ensuring that James's rights are protected. Under the 1999 letters patent, the choice of royal status, Anne argued forcefully, must remain with the parents and the children, not with the queen consort. Royal Report Daily, bringing you the truth behind every royal headline. By late evening on March 25, 2026, the outcome had become clear. King Charles III ordered a complete cessation of the Bagshot Park property review. The official word filtered through palace channels, carefully framed as a recognition of the unique contribution the Duke and Duchess have made to the preservation of the Surrey estate. Simultaneously, the crown claim on the Anthemion Tiara was quietly and completely dropped. The deed of gift left Camilla's office with absolutely no legal standing. A formal note from the master of the jewel house confirmed to the Duchess of Edinburgh that the Anthemion Tiara would remain under her exclusive private ownership and stewardship, permanently. Edward and Sophie had won, completely, legally, undeniably. The tiara remained in a high-security private safe at Bagshot Park. The home remained theirs. The legal fortress had held. But the victory came at a cost that no legal document can repair. The relationship between King Charles and Prince Edward, which was never one of deep personal warmth, has become frigidly and permanently professional. Edward has made clear through his representatives that he will continue to perform his royal duties with full commitment. But he will no longer participate in private family councils where Camilla's influence is dominant. The trust has been completely and permanently destroyed. Not temporarily damaged, destroyed. Subscribe to Royal Report Daily and stay connected to every royal development. The new shape of power within the House of Windsor is now fully visible to everyone paying attention. There are effectively two distinct courts operating within the same institution. The Central Court at Buckingham Palace, centered on King Charles and Queen Camilla, and an autonomous court of what insiders are calling the true Windsors, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, Sophie, and the growing influence of William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales. This second court is defined by its fierce loyalty to Queen Elizabeth's standards and its absolute determination to protect the institutional legacy she spent her entire life building. Princess Anne has emerged from this conflict as the unofficial guardian of royal values, the one figure who can hold the king himself accountable and place real limits on the queen consort's ambitions. Her nuclear deterrent, the threat of personally overseeing, a public audit of Camilla's own household, expenses and staff allocations if the property and jewelry campaigns continued, was a weapon only Anne could credibly deploy, and everyone in the palace knew it. For James and Lady Louise, Edward and Sophie's children, the events of March 25th have been an unforgettable lesson. They watched their father stand up to the King and Queen of England to protect their home and their mother's dignity. The quiet Duke showed his children that humility is never weakness, and that in the world of the monarchy, financial independence and legal foresight are the only forms of protection that truly cannot be taken away. Hit that like button and subscribe to Royal Report Daily right now. As the lights dimmed over Windsor and Surrey on the night of March 25, 2026, the Windsor schism remained, deep, cold, and very real. The Anthemion Tiara sparkled safely in its private vault at Bagshot Park, a symbol of a gift that survived an attempted purge. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh remained in their home, victorious but changed. No longer just the quiet ones, no longer just the reliable ones. They are now something the royal family had not seen in a very long time. A branch of the family that fought the palace itself and won. King Charles has his modernized, slimmed-down monarchy, but in achieving it, he has lost something that cannot be legislated back into existence: the unconditional loyalty and trust of his youngest brother. The cold peace that now settles over the House of Windsor is not unity. It is the uneasy coexistence of two courts, two sets of values, and two very different visions of what the British monarchy should be. The quiet rebellion is over, but the quiet Duke is quiet no more, and the House of Windsor will never be quite the same again. This has been Royal Report Daily, bringing you the complete truth from inside the palace walls. If this investigation opened your eyes to the real power dynamics at the heart of the British monarchy, please hit that like button right now. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Share this video with everyone who wants to understand what is really happening behind those palace gates. Turn on your notifications so you are always the first to know when we publish our next exclusive report. Because the story of the Windsor Schism in 2026 is far from over, there are more moves being made, more alliances being formed, and more moments of reckoning still to come. Royal Report Daily. Stay informed, stay connected, and we will see you in our next report.